My name is Nithya Narasimhan. I'm a senior program manager in the developer relations team at Microsoft. And today, I want to talk to you about resources for rapid prototyping that could help at your next hackathon. So, what exactly is rapid prototyping? At a high level, it's really about building a mock-up of an idea, app, or design so you can validate that idea with real users. And oftentimes, we do this so that we can use that feedback to iteratively improve the design of our application. What does this have to do with hackathons? Turns out our hackathon objectives are very similar. We want to build a functional idea, app, or design in a limited amount of time, except that we probably validate that idea with judges. And while we're doing this iteratively, we won't be working in agile teams, we'll be working in unfamiliar teams of people that we might have just met. So you need a game plan. Now, over the course of the past 10 years or so, I've participated in hackathons as a mentor, a judge, and a participant. And it seems to me that we need to think about this in 3 phases. First, plan it. Take a little bit of time up front to discuss who's taking on what role and responsibility, and then think about minimum viable prototype. What is the amount of work you need to do to show something that is complete in the amount of time that you have? Second, prototype it. And going back to what we said before, you will have a core idea, the most important aspect of your prototype. And then there's a lot of, commonality, like stuff that has to happen around it, companion content, if you will. So focus on finding reusable things for that 80% of companion content, and focus on building that 20% core idea from scratch first. Third, presentation. Make sure that the person who is responsible for presenting it addresses the key things that you need to hear at the hackathon. We'll talk a little bit about this later. So diving into the roles and responsibilities. At a very high level, you can think of them as having 3 buckets. There are the developers and designers, people who actually are working on building that user experience, that app, that feature that you're going to be demonstrating. But if everyone does only this, you'll miss out on 2 critical aspects. Make sure someone in the team has the role of project manager. And mind you, it could be someone who's already a developer. It just means that they have to execute these tasks as well. And the role of the project manager is literally to keep people on time, to understand who's doing what, make sure we're on track, and make sure you help with integration, kind of combining the efforts from various people and checking that in to make sure that there's progress being made on your project. And the presenter's job will be to kind of integrate in the things, the details that are needed for the final presentation as you go, so that you're not waiting till the last minute. You should have something ready to go the minute your demo's done. From a prototyping perspective, going back, I'm going to reinforce this again and again. Think of your project as having a core idea and then companion content. And usually 80% of the stuff that you see on the app will be companion content. The screens, the pictures, the text, the buttons. The 20% core idea is the thing that makes your app unique or interesting or doing something that was not there in boilerplate. So when you think about it this way, focus on how you can get reusable content to build that 80% really quickly, and then spend your time making sure that 20% is complete. That's the part that's going to actually win you the hackathon. So let's talk about design resources. So when you start your hackathon, start first by thinking of this app that you want to build. And here are some resources to get you started. First, look at the platform itself, the one that you're going to use. It turns out that most companies in industry have design guidelines, toolkits, and lots of useful libraries and SDKs to jumpstart your thinking if you're looking just at designing that experience. So I've pointed out 3 of them. Apple Design is great if you're going to be looking at iOS apps or mobile apps in general. Google Design is good if you're looking at mobile apps, but they also provide a lot of guidance for progressive web apps and web development. And then Microsoft Design, the 2 screens that you see here are from Microsoft's Fluid UI. Microsoft Design can also give you guidelines on inclusive design. What are the things you need to think of or explain as part of your story on how you make your app accessible to the broadest set of demographics. These kinds of tools and guidelines usually give you, examples and samples that you can build from for things like input widgets, layouts, styles, fonts, and so on. But you can also have other sources where you can get really good quality content assets, if you will, that you can use to make your app look professional. Things like images. Top right, you see an example from a site called Unsplash that I recommend highly. It's one of my favorites. All the images on that site are free for commercial and non-commercial use and are created by top class photographers. I mean, like, these are amateurs, but they've really kind of curated collections of high quality photographs available in various resolutions. There are other things, Pixabay, Flickr, you name it. Look for one of those sites. Make sure you pick images that reflect your design domain and have those ready to go. Icons. There you see the little screen that says icons for everything is from a site called Noun Project. There are many other sites like this. I'm just recommending one. Noun Project is a collection of icons that are built by designers who make them available for free with attribution. Or you can get a Noun Project Pro plan and then you can just use them without attribution too. And what's great about it, in fact, on the screen at the bottom right, that little light bulb comes from Noun Project. What's great about it is that you can find really unique representations of ideas that you're looking for that makes you have kind of like a novel appearance in your app. But you can also find collections. So if you're building a healthcare app, look for a healthcare collection. You'll get icons for every possible action or context that you might think of. Last but not least, icon fonts. If you're familiar with fonts, which is usually applying to text, wouldn't it be cool if, like, the labels on your buttons could also include an icon that could be styled exactly like the text in terms of color, weight, etc.? That's what icon fonts can do for you, and Icomoon is a great site to help you both find existing icon fonts and convert your images or SVG into relevant icon fonts. Next, wireframing tools. If you have mostly folks who are not familiar with coding, but you're participating in a hackathon so you can produce an idea, a demonstration of an idea, wireframes are a great place to start. Even if you're a coder, wireframes are a great place to start because you can get to scaffold out your entire idea, show the design of what you think your user experience and user interfaces are going to be, so that even if you don't complete coding everything and you just code one or two of those screens, the judges still get this idea of what the complete picture could look like. There are many tools out there. Balsamiq and Figma, this is an example from Balsamiq, are some of the most popular ones. But I also want to point out that wireframing tools, which let you do these mockup interfaces, also some of them come in another flavor, which allows you to build interactive prototypes. And the difference here is that those interactive prototypes are meant to be run on actual devices. So you can hand that wireframe to a real user and have them walk through the flow. And what that means is, if you can look at the little screen at bottom right, these wireframes not only allow you to kind of scaffold out your design, but they allow you to link various screens on various clicks on widgets, etc., so that to the user, it literally feels like clicking a button is taking you to the next screen. And now all the screens are still static screens. They're not really live, but it's one step better than just seeing all the screens put out on a single page. The example that you see here is from Fluid UI. I definitely kind of recommend you check it out. They allow you to do one project for free. It's a great way for you to show an interactive prototype really quickly, especially if you're not very familiar with code. But if you are familiar with code, or you kind of have people on the team who are somewhat conversant with various programming languages, you really want to be thinking also about development resources. At this point, hopefully you have a good idea of what your application or experience looks like, what the screens are, what the flows are. So when you think about development resources, you really got three different ways to go. First is the no-code approach, and this is literally where you would be right now. You've built a wireframe, you've potentially made it interactive through one of those tools, so you have a demo to show of your experience. And this is great if your team has designers, because they're very, very familiar with these tools. And it can get you quite a long way there to showing a demo if you have nothing else. The downside of the no-code approach is that when you're using things like this, it's possible that you may not be able to actually connect it to real data and real services. So at that point, there's actually two other approaches. First is what's called the low-code approach. This is something that's beginning to take shape in what's called citizen developers. People who are not coders, but who use a lot of these apps and really want to customize them for their needs. With a low-code approach, there are many tools. A great example is Microsoft's Power Platform, where you can use a visual tool to basically drag and drop widgets, connect them to each other, and connect them to real-world data sources and services or API endpoints to really quickly build an interactive real-world app. But if you are a full code developer, someone who's really familiar with one of those front-end frameworks for either web or mobile apps, it might be useful for you to then think about what resources are available to you to actually build that real-world app on one of those frameworks. And for these, we want to think about the following resources that can help you get to that 80% really quickly, so then you can focus on the 20% core feature. So the first thing is, if you're building a mobile app, you probably have screens, many screens that need to show realistic data. So we already talked about from a design perspective where you could get things like images, etc. But what if you want to build them, right? First is this thing called generators. There are many generators on there. Lorem ipsum is a great one. A generator is one that generates fake data in a way that can be accessed programmatically. So here you can basically get text, right? Realistic looking text, paragraphs and paragraphs. If you've got text screens or text areas on your app, you can have it generate images. If you've got like a visual grid of a gallery view, you can have it generate placeholders. If you have an edit view where you want people to fill in, for example, profile, or show them where they need to be uploading a photo, etc. There are generators for a lot of different kinds of features as well, so check that out. Second, if you're building an app, you probably have users involved. What if you wanted to show the experience for some of the user pages? There are sites and apps and APIs for that too. Randomuser.me is a great example. It allows you to basically gather a whole bunch of user profiles, which include images, but also contact information, phone numbers, email, all of them fake. But you can use the data to create a realistic view of the workflow for setting up a user or accessing a list of users, etc. One of the really nice things about randomuser.me is you can actually even do things like pick a gender or pick a location and get data that is reflective of that. So for example, if you were to pick UK, then the phone numbers would all have UK area codes, which is cool. And last, for fake data, your third option is to actually look at fake data libraries. So these, rather than you going to a website and fetching the data, give you the ability to have a programmatic call to a library that you integrate into your app that generates the data on the fly. Faker.js is a very popular one. There are many others that you can look at in Python and Java as well. But this is a great way for you to kind of do a cold start, fill in what's called fixtures in your screens so that you can immediately have something you can test or something you can show that kind of walks through the whole workflow. Great. With mock data, you can get to a lot of screens and like user interfaces that just show you the experience. But remember that 20% where you want to do something live, where you want to do something real, where you want to show that unique feature? At that point, chances are you're going to need an API, something that allows you to reach out to a remote service that provides that capability. Again, you have two approaches. First, let's say this is a capability that you want to showcase, but you don't know if it exists or not. Then mock it up. Postman is a great resource that you can look at, where you can pretty much create the equivalent of an API that you think should exist, and then put your fake data behind it so that your app is hitting what looks like a real API in real time, getting back real responses that you've cached. And so to your judges or your users, you can walk through a process, have it actually hit a service, get back data and show it, and it looks real, but you were able to provision it with your fake data. But if that's not possible, or if there's something that you want that actually exists in the real world, how would you find it? The greatest resource for that is a site called Programmable Web, which lists most of the APIs that are available for you, including links to potentially the libraries that you can use in various programming languages to use those APIs. Here's an example of me looking for, hey, what APIs can I have that I can get weather data from? And it shows me a bunch of different APIs that are available. Again, one of the nice things is I can scope it down to my location. I want to look for weather APIs that provide this in a particular language, or that provide insights, or kind of, maybe weather jokes could be something like that, right? A different perspective. And you can find those APIs here and integrate with them. And last but not least, at this point, we've talked about, hey, I could have just done a design no code version of a demo using just the designer resources, or I could have done a full code version using fake data, fake API endpoints, or integrating with real API endpoints. But how do I get started? Well, if you're a person who knows a specific front-end framework or programming language, you might have your specific starter or boilerplate starter kit of choice. But there's a great way for you to find ones that not only pick the relevant framework, but potentially even have a boilerplate of a starter app that reflects your need. For example, if you want to build a feature that works on a to-do app, you might be able to find a boilerplate app that's been scaffolded using that specific combination of to-do and React, right? In this particular example, I'm actually talking about Yeoman. Yeoman is a very, very interesting and popular tool and workflow that allows you to find existing generators. Generators are effectively, think of them as someone having written the boilerplate and then registered it against this generator name. So you can quickly use the Yeoman tool to pull the required distribution, instantiate, and start your boilerplate going. So with Yeoman, you have two great features. One is you can search the site. For example, I'm doing a search on Bot Builder framework for Microsoft and immediately get a sense of what kinds of starter packs are available around it. And Yeoman then makes it very easy for you to instantiate it with that your workflow. But the second thing, which is kind of interesting, is that Yeoman allows you to actually then register your generator as one of the things that others can use. So as part of your hackathon, if you did nothing else, maybe you came up with a baseline set of code and link together configuration scripts, etc., that helps jumpstart a new kind of app. You could go ahead and create a generator around that, register it, and allow other people to use it too. So Yeoman is a great resource for you to get started finding a starter kit that meets your programming criteria, but potentially also your domain criteria. So all this is great. So we've talked about resources for design, resources for development. Last but not least, let's spend a couple of minutes talking about the most important thing of all, which is managing your time. Most hackathons are could be 12 hours, 24, 36, or 2 days, sometimes more. But keeping it simple is the number one thing you need to do, because in most cases, you're going to be working with teams of people you don't know. What does it mean to keep it simple when it comes to project management? One, use a shared doc. Go for the lowest hanging common denominator, right? Simple doc where you're outlining who the team members are, what they're working on, what are the tasks you need, who's currently assigned to or owning them, and then a sense of how those tasks are to be prioritized. Who should do what first? How do you put them together to get a final result? Second, and I can't emphasize this enough, this is such a low-level hack, but so good in real-world examples. Set a timer on the table. Make sure that you understand what your key milestones are and set a timer that allows everyone to be aware when that goes off. And what it does is two things. One, it gives you a sense of where you are with respect to your, projected progress. But second, it allows you to then take decisions on perhaps not wanting to do as much as you did. And so it's at points like this that it's really great that when you get that 80% of reusable resources and focus on just building the 20%, you can kind of quickly get a sense of, let's not worry about decorating all the other views that we're not going to look at. Let's focus on getting this feature done. And if we can show that, that's good, right? You can triage at the timers. And last but not least, keep it simple means creating that project template for the presentation at the get-go. Start writing stuff in it as you go so that by the time presentation or pitch time rolls around, all you need is a link to the demo or a link to something that you can show a video of a live demo. So what does that pitch template look like? Here's a real quick checklist that you might want to use. Have one slide that introduces the team. Who are they and what did each person do or contribute to this project? Super useful for judges who want to really see not just a sense of the innovation, but the team dynamics and collaboration. Second, have a slide that tells a story. Put something personal. Explain why you picked this idea, why you worked on this project, what you were trying to achieve. That then also encapsulates some of the other things. What other things? 3, reinforce the theme. Every hackathon has a theme. It could be a hackathon for self-care. It could be a hackathon for COVID. Make sure that you take one slide to describe how you feel you are tackling that theme challenge in your app. 4, highlight sponsor links. There are usually multiple sponsor challenges at hackathons, and one project can try to address multiple of them. So take 1 or 2 slides to highlight what hackathon sponsor challenges were out there and what you used. It could be a challenge that asks you to use an API, could be a challenge that asks you to address a specific need that that particular sponsor had. Make sure you address them succinctly so that if a judge were to go back and look at it or kind of have it in the back of their mind as they see the demo, they immediately make a connection to that challenge. And last, a slide where you show the working demo. Now, most people will do interactive demos, but ideally you want to have a video of it so that if all things fail, you have something you can show of a working prototype. But there's also one interesting thing that you should do. If you have the time, talk about the challenges, the failures that you encountered. It's equally important to let the judges know what you tried that didn't work, so that if by any chance you didn't get to complete your demo, you will still be able to show impact in terms of the kind of thinking you did to move the challenge forward. Well, I hope that was useful. So this is the last slide. A quick recap. Hackathons are usually consisting of like time-constrained environments with unfamiliar teams. So you need to hack your hackathon. First, plan ahead. What does that mean? It means first look at the design. Look at all the design resources and see if they can get you 80% of the way towards doing what you want to do. Second, prototype wisely. Once you've got your design in place, look through the design and identify that segment of it that tackles that 20% core idea, the thing that makes your prototype unique or interesting, and focus on that. For the rest of it, use fake data, APIs, generators, whatever you need to kind of bring the realistic environment there, but focus on the 20% core idea first and move your way out. One of the nice things is that by using this two-pronged approach of having design content, pre-designed interfaces, as well as all this, places where you can populate it with existing data or APIs. One of the good things is that if you have a team of members who kind of are split between coders and non-coders, the non-coders can still contribute to the development of the prototype by building up some of these screens, by building up some of these companion content to the core idea, and all of that will contribute to a finished look for your project. Last but not least, perfect pitch. Keep your project management plan simple, execute on checklists, and you should be good to go. Thank you so much for listening. These slides are available at the link below. If you want to kind of take a look at them, I will be updating them in the notes and in the slides themselves with links to these and other resources in each of the different categories we looked at. And if you have any questions or comments, you can find me at Nithya on Twitter. My DMs are open and I'd love to hear from you. I'll leave you with one final thought. Everything in life is a hackathon. This talk for me was a hackathon of sorts. I kind of put it together in 24 hours and it reflects the same process. This is a sketch note. That was my design for this talk. It took me a little bit of time to just kind of scope out what I wanted to do. And then I spent time looking for free reusable resources that could help me bring each of those sections to life. The end result is the talk you see. The little parts of it which are important, which are the core 20%, is recording this demo, which was something that I could then focus on once I had all the other parts filled in. So the same process holds for hackathons. Plan it out. Prioritize and build the things that you need, and then present it. And good luck.